A blessed morning to you out there, and welcome to the program, The Dailies on Network Television International, where we keep you updated with what is happening from the Nigerian newspaper. I am Sela Elisha Dashram, and of course Rachel Tanzi is, here with me too. Good morning.
Good morning,
How you doing, Rachel?
I'm fine. How about you?
All right. We're live on Facebook and on YouTube. You can do well to drop your comment or contribution on any story that is of interest to you. And let us start with the first paper, Rachel, which is the Daily Times newspaper.
On the Daily Times newspaper, more pleas to British court as Ekweremadu wife risks 10 years in jail. Court strikes out 1.8 billion naira corruption charges against Dasuki, ex-aide, and 8 others. You can find the details on page 2. Lawan Omoagege under fire for plotting to alter Senate rules. The details you can find on page 14. And the big story on the Daily Times newspaper, INEC Tinubu Atiku Obi get notices as tribunal opens pre-hearing Monday. Despite allegations of fraud, Senate approves expended 22.7 trillion naira CBN Ways and Means loans for Buhari. You can find the details inside the paper. Passengers stranded as Labour holds Owerri flight. Short air peace operations in Lagos. You can start with the details on the front page, and inside the paper we have a picture story where we can see the Nigerian Air Force officers. You can find the details inside the paper, and that's all the news on the Daily Times newspaper.
On the Vanguard newspaper, with the forex turnover in I&E window falls 46% to $1.4 billion. You can find that on page 19. Lobby me to refund, I don't owe you, Tinubu tells Wike. You can find that on page 10. And on a report coming from the oil sector, Nigeria and 4 others account for over 80% of Africans' output. And on the 10th House of Assembly, we are working on consensus arrangement coming from the APC. And the big story for the Vanguard, NLC TUC kick as Senate OK's federal government 22.7 trillion naira Ways and Means, with the writer following the story says it's shocking coming from the Nigerian Labour Congress. Approval creates room for suspicion coming from the TUC, and then we approve advances to avert government shutdown coming from Lawan. Says move will allow the National Assembly consider pending 2022 supplementary budget. We have a picture story here. Buhari launches agenda for 2050, where we can see from the left the Secretary General of the Federation, Boss Mustafa, the Vice President Yemi Osinbajo. We have President Muhammadu Buhari, the Minister of Finance Zainab Ahmed, and the Minister of State Finance and Budget, Prince Clem, launching the Nigeria's Agenda 2050 in the State House during the Federal Executive Council meeting yesterday. You can read more of that story inside the paper. Still on the 10th Assembly, we will contest for reps, speaker, says opposition parties. You can find that on page 9. Again, Labour Party disown Apapa-led fraction blames the APC governors and the National Working Committee members. Organ harvesting, Senate seek pardon for Ekweremadu. You can find on page 8. And on Sudan crisis, first batch of 400 evacuees expected in Abuja. My 4 wives, 28 children prove I will succeed as speaker, coming from Dogwa. You can find that story on page 4. We have a column here coming from Olufasan. You can read, he said, how the Supreme Court interpret the Constitution and determines the presidential election petition matters hugely, fingers crossed. You can read more of that on page 18. Excuse me, we have a column for sport where we see Okocha drags Radibi song Kanuti to Nigeria. You can find more of that too on page 31, and that's all on the Vanguard newspaper.
On Daily Sun newspaper, Senate pleads for mercy, joins others in asking UK government for leniency. Still on the Ekweremadu case, you can find the details on page 26. I won't marginalize any part of Nigeria. A statement coming from Tinubu, the writer following that hails Wike for championing justice but declines commitment on refund of money spent building federal roads, bridges in rivers. Court adjourns Kanu's application for medical leave. Work for national unity, Northern elders tell Nwayahu. Obi's mantra mandatory for elected Labour Party office holders, says party. We're not in a hurry to zone offices, coming from Adamu, the APC chair. Police lists 25 distressed barracks for demolition in Lagos. You can find the details on page 5. Opposition rep-select insists on contesting speakership position. Senate approves federal government 22.7 trillion naira CBN loan request. Buhari launches Nigeria Agenda 2050. The details you can find on page 6. At the downside of the paper, AFP accuses NLC of targeting its operation. You can find the details on page 2. We have a picture story where we can see the President-elect Bola Ahmed Tinubu with Governor Nyesom Wike of Rivers and Seyi Makinde of Oyo, Hope Uzodinma of Imo, and Speaker House of Representatives Femi Gbajabiamila during the inauguration of Ramukwata Ramula overhead bridge by the President-elect at Obi Akpo local government area in Rivers yesterday. And that's all the news on Daily Sun newspaper.
On the Guardian newspaper, National Assembly leadership, Tinubu defers zoning decision after May 29. You can find more of that on page 6. And on project reform, I owe you nothing, Tinubu tells Wike. You can read more detail of that story on page 27. Now to the big story, Nigeria to spend next 40 years repaying controversial 23.72 trillion naira CBN overdraft to the federal government, and we can see the debt here, which is about 23.72 trillion naira. Quite a lot of debt to actually pay, and you can read more of that on page 6. Still on the Guardian newspaper, corrupt officials sabotaging passport insurance, Arabessola alleges. You can find that on page 5. And we have NACC, IMA, CPPE lament worsening state of economy. Senate cannot stop demolition at Lagos airport, says the federal government. And we have desperate probes officials, corruption undermining building control enforcement. It's a news analyst which you can find on page 4. Downside, we have police officials, farmers to vacate 25 barracks for renovation. You can find more of that story inside, and that's all on the Guardian newspaper.
On Nigerian Tribune, APC NWC ends 4-hour meeting without decision on National Assembly leadership zoning. We are waiting for President-elect's input. A statement coming from Adamu. Lukman agrees to withdraw suit. You can find the details on page 5. Africans living in UK battle for survival, a report burdened by cost of living crisis, shrinking labor force, and homelessness. You can find the details on page 30. Police to demolish, rebuild 25 distressed barracks in Lagos. Senate can't stop demolition work at Lagos Airport, a statement coming from the federal government. Senate approves 22.7 trillion naira ways and means loan for Buhari. And the big story on Nigerian Tribune, Tinubu to Wike, I owe you nothing. As Rivers governor asks for refund on 80 billion naira spent on projects, I will not marginalize any part of Nigeria, President-elect promises. Police hand over 215 electoral offenders to INEC for prosecution. Buhari launches Agenda 2050, says Nigeria to become top-income economy. A Papa-led Labour Party faction holds neck in Bauchi, says will pursue Obi's petition to logical conclusion. The details can be found on page 2. Still on the 10th National Assembly, 180 minority members elect form coalition to produce speaker. Dogoa joins race, says alleged murder case not a hindrance. Wase Bataria and awaits APC zoning formula. Akande Sadipe declares interest in deputy speakership. You can find the details on page 4. We have a picture story where we can see the president and the Minister of Finance and the Minister of Budgeting at the launch of the Agenda 2050. And that's all the news on Nigerian Tribune.
On the Punch newspaper, I will start with a big story. 26 days to go. Outrage as Senate approved Buhari's 22.7 trillion naira extra budgetary spending with the right of fresh borrowing from CBN illegal. Suspicious says NICA and LCCI and also economics. 22.7 trillion naira extra budgetary spending to raise public debt to 69 trillion naira. And let me read a little detail of that story. Prominent Economics Nigerian Employers Consultative Association and opposition party took a sweep at the President, Major General Muhammadu Buhari, and the Senate over the government 22.7 trillion naira extra budgetary spending approved by the upper legislative chamber on Wednesday. While groups include NECA and the Lagos Chambers of Commerce and Industry questioned the rationale for the loan by a regime that was approaching its exit, Economics in separate interviews with The Punch described the approval by the Senate as unusual. With the approval by the Senate of the 22.7 trillion naira loan from the CBN of Nigeria extended to the federal government under its Ways and Means provision, Nigeria's external debt will rise to 68.95 trillion naira. The Debt Management Office recently revealed that Nigeria's total public debt stock increased to 46.25 trillion naira in the fourth quarter of 2022. It stated that the figure consisted of the domestic and external total debt stock of the federal government and the sub-national government. You can read more of that story inside the Punch newspaper. Excuse me. Other story on the Punch coming from Sudan: 376 stranded Nigerians airlifted from Egypt. Federal government disconnect discourse from national Greek over debt. And then on strike, resident doctors said federal government threats annoying. We have other stories which are also on other papers, so you can do well, grab the Punch and read more stories that are of interest to you.
On New Telegraph, haulage, Nigerians lose $2.8 billion cargo movement to Asian firms. Federal government budget threatened as oil price crashes below $74 benchmark. And you can find the details on page 5. Buhari to attend King Charles' coronation in London. Senate approves Buhari's request to restructure 22.7 trillion naira Ways and Means loans. Party crisis, join a papa, lose your seat. Labour Party threatens elected officials and members. I've written to British Judiciary Authority. This is still under Karamado, organ of harvesting problem. Airlines incur over Lagos, Owerri, other airports. We're not aware flights to other places were disrupted. This is coming from the NLC. Imo accuses Ajero of using labor to fight personal war. You can find the details on page 2 and 4. Imo thrown into darkness as mass disconnection looms in Ogun, Oyo, Osun, Kwara, Niger, Ekiti, and Kogi. Kremlin accuses Ukraine of trying to assassinate Putin. The details you can find on page 27. PDP unveils Milaye as Guba candidate. This is on the Kogi 2023 governorship election. Court strikes out 1.8 billion naira corruption charges against Dasuki's ex-aide and 8 others. Still on New Telegraph newspaper for all regions. FEC OK's national blockchain policy. You can find the details on page 2 for those of us who are in the blockchain business. And at the downside of the paper, expect increase in cancer cases among children in Nigerians if the details can be found on page 7. And that's all the news on New Telegraph.
On Nigeria properties in Kano. World Bank appoints Ajabaga as president. 376 evacuees arrive Abuja from Sudan. You can find that on page 22. The big story, 26 days ups with the writer. Target increase of per capita income to $33,328 per annum. Aims at placing Nigeria amongst world top economics by 2050. President urges incoming administration to implement plan. You can find that on page 4. Federal government road, Wike ICE project refund. Tinubu replies, I owe you nothing. You can find that on page 2. Ican Awards 2023 Governor Emmanuel Elibute orders confirm participation. And we have Access Bank gets approval for majority stake acquisition in Finobaco, Angola. You can find more of that story too inside the paper. Senate okays Buhari 22.7 trillion naira loan from CBN. And we have Lagos State government names inauguration committee of Sanwo-Olu's second term. And we have NDIC launch judiciary solicitors on diligent prosecution of failed bank cases. We have a picture story too, which you can do well to grab the Nigerian News Direct and read more detail of any story that is of interest to you.
On a Business Day newspaper, tomato prices jumped 363% as disease curbs output, exposed federal government's failure to tackle food security threats. Importers, exporters squeezed over custom agent strike. You can find the details on page 28. Izuna saw Opabio others jostle for Senate presidency. Buhari gets Senate not to restructure 22.7 trillion naira CBN loans. Toriola Pochero's top highest earning Nigerian CEOs. You can find the details inside the paper on page 28, and that's all the news on Business Day.
All right, and on leadership newspaper, still on Ekweremadu's case, Senate begs UK court for clemency. Zibanjo, lone journalist who authored book on him. You can find more of that on page 6. And we have Tinubu to Wike. If you want refund on Rivers roads, lobby me. You can find more of that story too. And we have the big story on the National Assembly leadership. APC may opt for consensus Senate President and Speaker. Opposition members elect for coalition to produce Speaker. National Working Committee moves to end leadership crisis, asks Lukman to withdraw suit against Adamu and Omisuri. We have Don't Trucate Kanu's suit against DSS court warns parties. You can find that on page 13. Senate approves President Muhammadu Buhari's request for 22.7 trillion naira loan. And Labour Party crisis, we pardon Obi Dati for attending Abure's meeting coming from Apapa. We still have the picture story showing the Agenda 2050 where we can see the book launch over there. You can do well to grab the leadership and read more detail of stories that are of interest to you.
On this day newspaper, at last, Senate approves 22.7 trillion naira CBN 2022. Buhari launches new national development plan. EFCC ICPC urged dismissal of Keyamo's alleged fraud suit against Atiku. After hours of delay, first batch of 350 evacuees arrived behind rescue efforts. Lament NLC TUC's disruption of company's operation. You can find the details on page 32. And the big story on describes him as dependable ally. Rivers governor seeks amendment to procurement law. You're desperate for 2050, and that's all the news on this day newspaper.
On the Matrix newspaper, Buhari to great coronation of King Charles III on Saturday, which you can read on the front page, and more inside the paper. And then we are also having organized private sector reject federal government exercise tax hike, which you can find on page 12. Ronaldo tops probes highest paid athletes. You can read more of that on page 17. And on Sudan crisis, first batch of evacuated Nigerians arrived in Abuja. The Air Peace flight carried over 270 Nigerian students from the Aswa Airport in Egypt has landed at the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport, Abuja. Then we have the NAF C-13 jet also conveyed about 80% has also arrived. You can read more of that story on the front page and on page 4. And we have on the 10th National Assembly, opposition parties move against APC. 180 minority members elect vow to end APC reign. To produce next speaker, Dugwa talk tough, lays claim to speakership amid murder charges. We have at CBN headquarters, protesters demand Emifele's resignation and arrest. And on Presidential Election Tribunal commences hearing on May 8th. Global hunger affected 258 million people in 2022. This is a report that we need to read detail and see among these 258 million, what is the portion or what statistics has been assigned to Nigeria and how can we fight hunger. Downside, we have NDLEA announces online test for applicants. For those who have taken that test, it's important that you go online and check the results and also the tests and also see what can be done. And you can find detail on page 10. We have the pictures where we can see Tinubu in port during the visit he had there, the president-elect being received by the state governor. We can see him over there preparating for the commissioning of the construction over there in River State yesterday. And that's all on the Metrics newspaper.
Starting with the big story on the Blueprint newspaper, 10th National Assembly leadership, PDP, Labour Party, others battle APC for Speaker, Deputy, ruling party opts for concessions. Opposition parties raised 11-man team to scout 4 credible candidates. It's my turn to be Speaker, Dogoa declares. You can find the details on page 6. 3,651 attending pilgrims complete payment in FCT. This is on the 2023 Hajj. Organ arresting 48 hours to sentencing. Senate pleads for Ekweremadu. Imo Varsity suspends lecturer for slapping female student. You can find the details on page 15. Still on the Ways and Means, Senate makes U-turn, passes Buhari's 22.9 trillion naira request. Obtain law degree or lose your job, Nasarawa Assembly tells judges. Nigeria to become top middle income economy by 2050, coming from Buhari. Contractors want Tinubu to pay extra attention to rural electricity. You can find the details on page 22. We have a picture story where we can see the President-elect Bola Ahmed Tinubu and the Rivers State Governor Nyesom Wike. And that's all the news on Blueprint newspaper.
All right, before we move further with the newspaper review, we would like to take a break at this moment so we can open the phone line and also get to see if your comments drop on our Facebook or YouTube pages, and then we take it. We have a lot on the paper, looking at just 26 days to go, or you can actually call it 25 days to go. And then we can see that another fresh loan has been, approved. What do you think this will mean for the economy of Nigeria at a time like this? And also we've seen about 256 million, talking about globally there's hunger. So it's a report that has come up on the paper. So we want to know what you feel about it, some of the crises. We've also seen tomato being affected. The prices are high. So we'd love to hear what your inputs are, what your thoughts are concerning any of the story that's of interest to you. So when we come back from the break, we'll take your phone calls. So no going, we'll be right back. Thank you for staying tuned. It's still the Dailies on Echo Television. We've been looking at various stories. We've seen the 10th National Assembly still. We've also seen The president-elect Tinubu telling Wike he did not owe him any, refund of the project. But if he wants that, he should lobby him. We've also seen tomatoes being on a very high, a hike in price because of some infection, and we know the way tomatoes is, especially during the rainy season. So a lot of stories, a lot of things are happening. A fresh loan has been, approved just barely 26 days to the end of this present administration. So want to know what does that mean to the economy of Nigeria at a time like this. And also we've heard also from the papers, Nigerians have been stranded in Sudan already. We're having the first batch, so we're really excited and happy, and we hope their parents are already welcoming them back home. So we hope those that are still stranded will get to come. So at this moment our numbers are displayed on your screen. You can do well to call us. We'd love to hear what your thoughts are concerning any of the stories. Please do remember to turn down the volume of your TV set when you call us, and also be very civil, with your language.
We have a caller on the line
already. Good
yes.
morning.
All right. Good morning, Mrs. Sele. Good morning, Mrs. Richard. This is Sam again calling from Buhari.
All right, Mrs. Sam, go on.
Okay, I want to start my comment from that comedy by Honorable Dogwa about presenting his 4 wives and 28 children as the yardstick to measure his qualification as the Speaker of the House of Representatives. My only worry is that these headlines are read by all countries, and it's really a comedy of his own. You understand, presenting your mini army barrack in your own home as the reason why you cannot be able to be Speaker of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. But that aside, let me talk on the 22.7 trillion. And this Ahmed Lawa-led Senate is the undertakers of present and future Nigeria. I do not know how our children, upon the debt that has already been incurred, about 46 trillion has already been incurred just for this one. And with this now, we are taking the total debt. Meaning that much of the money we are making as our own revenue is now used to be able to pay the interest on loan that we have not even touched the principal. We have not even touched. So when these people are both Chinese and Japan, they owe much loan. But then compare their GDP, the per capita incomes of individual. Most of this country, they pay this loan without having an impact on the daily life of their citizens. As we speak, Mrs. Sele and Rachel, Nigeria 33 million people in below the poverty line, in a multi-dimensional poverty. So how can people make this country to suffer this much? You keep on collecting loan upon loan. What is it that this government can do in the remaining few days that the next government cannot do? So this is a country that we must speak true, because the Bible says only truth exalts a nation. We cannot be this hypocritical when it is a government you don't support. Every move they do, you say is bad. But facts does not respect religions and ethnicity. Facts remain a fact. As this law is really anti-people's loan, and everything must be done to stop this loan, because enough is enough. We cannot continue to impoverish and enslave the present and future generation. Of all this loan that this government has collected, where are those projects? Are they spiritual projects? We are not seeing them. But I keep telling people that to measure the development of any government, it is not only the physical structural development. What about the human resources development? You need to be alive to move on those flyover. They are talking there and the highways. So we pray that this morning that some people will talk some senses, and this loan should not be able to come to pass because we don't know how we are going to pay all the one they have accumulated. Thank you, and do have a good press review this morning.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Sam. Thank you. You know, he said a lot, Richard.
He did.
And when I was reading that headline at first, honestly, it's a joke, it's a comedy. Because I do not see why we will have someone of that position using his family as a way to show that he's competent enough to rule or to be the same president. I think we have another call. Hello, good morning.
My name is Apostle Prosper.
All right, please go on, sir.
Okay. Yeah, good morning.
Good morning.
I'm your second. I'm here to know the name of your second host.
It's Rachel and Sele.
Nevertheless, first I must comment on your efforts to daily brief us in all that is going on in the nation. And then I would say I will have reference to two things, starting from the last caller. The scripture says righteousness exalts a nation and sin is a reproach to a people. That having been said, it is obvious that those who are about leaving want to see how much and how many they can grab before they leave. But I think in sincerity and in transparency in governance, they should leave certain things for the incoming government, you know, to sort out by themselves. Because the country is already overburdened with loans, with all kind of loans. And I don't think it is right. I just pray that loan, whatever it is called or whatever it is directed for, should be rejected, and that we can have fresh air in that regard. Secondly, I want to talk briefly on the headlines that have to do with Tinubu, the incoming president, visit to Rivers State, and his statement in that place. I want to say that the beginning of drama, for me, the beginning of drama has started. You know, and the little I know about him, he's not the easy person you can just say you have your way anyhow. You can't baboose him, you cannot lure him into something he is not sure of. I'm never his fan, but I'm just saying something I know about him. So the statement he made there, that he's just who he is. If you want him, you have to lobby. That is just the truth. But the beginning of drama has started. That is just all I want to say in that regard. God bless you again. Just pray we keep having a peaceful Nigeria and ensuring that we continue to forge ahead economically, God willing. God bless you both.
Amen.
And Nigeria,
Amen.
you know.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, because these two calls are really very, very timely. Because of course Nigerians are concerned. Before the call came in, I was talking about where we are having Dugua saying the fact that because he actually had 4 wives and 28 children, it's a proof he will succeed as a speaker. And I do not know since when have our families become a yardstick for us to measure how successful we will be. Of course, I know that the family is the smallest unit. So from there, away from the family, we have, it builds up to being the larger, you know, of course, to the society. So somehow, whatever we have been, whatever has been given to us from where we're in our family is what we carry to the larger society. But then where is the place of competence? Where is the place of transparency? Where is the place of accountability? We're talking of someone that recently was being accused of a crime.
Yes.
So, of course, the Nigerian government is supposed to make sure that he is clean before he can come out. We saw in the papers where right now they say no more zoning. It's all about competence. And we can see the North are still saying they want to be there. The Southeast are saying, why not us? The Southwest are saying, why not us? And we can still see that it's all about who wants. Okay, I think we have another call on the line. Hello, good morning. Good morning, sir.
Hello.
We are with you, sir. Good morning.
Good morning.
What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Good morning.
Please turn down the volume of your TV set, sir.
I'm calling from Abuja.
All right, please turn down the volume of your TV set, sir. Hello, are you there?
Sorry.
All right, go on, please.
Yes. Okay, I want to comment on this headline that says about somebody talking about becoming the Senate president and his ability to be a successful farmer and all of that. I just want to say that most of those people they are just looking for power. You cannot tell us because your ability of being a farmer that is why you think you can be the state president or whatsoever. Tell us what you will use that position to do for Nigerians. Tell us the plan you have. Not somebody just want to be there. From the first to the last, as far as this party is concerned, they just want power. The vision is just totally not there. They just want to be in power. Why this fighting? It must be this zone because you give APC so much vote. It must from this side because this is so did not give. Why all of those stories? Tell us if I'm to become the Senate president of this country, this is what I will use my power to do. The vision, your plan for Nigeria, not because of zone. Even if the Senate president that will work for Nigeria, that will approve the right laws for Nigeria to be a better place, called from even from the Yoruba land. No problem, so long as he's the right person. Not by zoning or because of say, okay, Senate president is from this side, Senate president must have to be this side. Let the right people be in the right position. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. You know, just like I was saying, now let's go to the debts that we have as a nation.
Yeah.
We're looking at our population, looking at 133 million Nigerians that are living below poverty lane. And then you can actually take a statistic of how many people earn up to 300,000 naira in a year. Most Nigerians are earning between 240,000 annually.
Yes.
So that is to say that a lot of people, that's when we are having about 103 million, Rachel, talking about more than half of the population of Nigeria. Absolutely. So that we have very little elite of the population of those people who are living up there. So a lot needs to be done. The problem, excuse me, the problem we have here is the fact that we don't really have, will I say, scale of preference. Okay, we have another call. Hello, good morning.
From Bida.
All right. How is Bida this morning?
Hello, good morning. How are you?
We're fine, thank you, sir.
Oh, Bida is fine.
Yes, sir.
Please, my problem is with the loan the Senate has approved for the presidency. The government is leaving the seat. What is the need for the loan? What do they want to do with the loan? Does it mean that they want to share the money with the Senate? Of what project will they use that loan for now? Please.
That is a question.
All right. Yeah. Thank
What
you.
do they need the loan for?
What do
What
they
are they
need
going
it
to
for?
do? So I think it's the same question all the callers were asking. Do they need a parting gift? Of course,
Sounds
Nigerians
like
have
it.
the right to ask all of these questions, Richard. Don't you think so?
Sele, we have the right to ask every question, because I keep saying that if Nigerians will only understand that this national cake that we think is national cake is you and I money, Sele, we will ask them to account for every kobo they spend. When you look at the federal allocation by the FAAC coming from the finance minister, you realize that it's tax, Sele, from you, from me, from every regular person, even from a child in Nigeria. Because if I should give my child 15 naira and say, go and get something, my son or my daughter is being taxed for that 15 naira thing, even if it's a biscuit. So if we understand how the government generates revenue, we will have the right to ask how it's been spent, and we will demand for it and not feel as if it's an optional thing. Accumulated revenue over years, and now the Senate have approved that the president can get it from the CBN as a loan. However, the question is now, what is this loan for? What are you planning to do 26 days to you leaving the office? What is that project that you've planned on achieving? Or how are you, and we know how the system of our government have been for years, is that every administration comes with its unique project and their vision for the country. Yet